Hello everybody, it's Kara from Wild Book Garden, and today I'm here with my spoiler-free review for Sleeping Spells and Dragon Scales by Wendy S. Swore. This is a middle grade fantasy book that has, at the time of filming this, it has already come out, so you are able to check it out and get your hands on it. I did receive this advanced copy in exchange for an honest review, so thank you so much to the publisher. And I'm also going to put content warnings for the book in the description box, so please check that out if you would like them. And as I said, this is going to be spoiler-free. So this is dual perspective. We are following Liam and Elena as our main characters. And they used to be best friends several years ago, but after this kind of adventure went wrong a little bit. They ended up drifting apart, and so even though they go to the same school and they're in some of the same classes, they don't really know each other that well anymore. And Elena has always really loved like fairy tales and folklore and like believing in magic and kind of adventures and that sort of thing, and Liam is much less into that. And the kind of adventure that they went on when they were young, Elena is convinced that they somehow angered or like crossed these fairies, and that maybe they have gotten cursed and that is like affecting their life. And one of the reasons that I was specifically very interested in this book is the way that it blends fairy tale or fantasy elements with important representation and discussions about that. Elena has type 1 diabetes, and that is a really important part of her perspective. Like we hear about the different things that she has to do and keep track of, and how much this is a factor in her everyday life, but also she has all of this like rich personality and all these dreams, all these things that she loves doing that is separate from that. So it is an important part of her worldview, but it doesn't define her. And I also think, and I'll get into this a little bit more later, but I also think the author did a really great job of delineating what parts were kind of fantasy and exploring like magic in the world versus the very real representation of disability and what that experience is like. And then Liam, our other main character, close to the beginning of the book, he starts getting sick, or he has something that's wrong with him where he's just exhausted all the time. He gets really dizzy. He suddenly loses like strength in his whole body, and it's really, really scary for him. And to make matters, worse or more complicated, people, of course, aren't even believing that this is happening to him. They think he's lazy. They think that he's not taking school or his soccer practice seriously, and that if he just tried harder, he'd be fine. And so Liam is really trying to figure out like what is wrong with him, trying to convince people that there is something wrong with him. And this experience sort of brings Elena and him back into each other's orbit, and they end up kind of becoming friends again and trying to figure out what is going on with Liam, and if this somehow could be related to this adventure that they went on when they were little. Although, as I said, again, I think that the author was very like mindful of not linking fantasy with real things that kids deal with. I think that she just handled that very, very well. So I absolutely loved this book. Like I, of course, was expecting to enjoy it, but I loved it even more than I thought I would, I guess. Like I hadn't read anything by this author before, so I didn't really know what to expect in that regard. But I loved these two kids so much. I think Liam and Elena were equally well written, equally important main characters. Like it didn't feel like sometimes, you pick up a book that is dual point of view, and it feels like, yes, they are both main characters, but clearly one of them is supposed to be like the main character, and I don't always love that when a book is presenting itself as like being about two characters, but really it's clear that one of them is supposed to be more important. And so I really like that this book didn't do that. I love Liam and Elena just so much. I know I already said that, but I really love these kids. I felt for them so much. I loved them separately, and I also really loved their friendship, and the way that they come to depend on each other and that they understand each other, and also like the weirdness of like they used to be best friends and then kind of like trying to get back into that after several years of drifting apart. I thought the writing of this book was really excellent. I feel like it did a really good job of, exploring these sort of like fantastical like stories and ideas, while also being very grounded in these kids' real lives and in their emotions and their relationships. And I mentioned this already, but I feel like the representation aspect was really, really well handled in the book. The author talks about in the author's note how at least one of these things is from personal experience, and the information she includes at the back, she clearly did a lot of like research about how to incorporate these things and what those things are like. And I think along with that representation, I think that the emotional impact of those things was communicated absolutely brilliantly. Like I mentioned, how one of the things that Liam is really struggling with is not knowing what to call what's wrong with him, and how like difficult that is, and how absolutely gutting it is for people to not believe that he is sick. Like, he's already so scared about not knowing what's going on with his body, not knowing what's going to happen to him, and then to have on top of that people not even believe that it's real. And that, of course, is something that a lot of people with disabilities, especially like invisible disabilities or invisible illnesses, deal with. And I feel like it was handled here with so much compassion. Like, my heart just broke for him because he doesn't even have the language to try and make people understand. And without that, like, they're clearly not listening. You know, they're not giving him the benefit of the doubt of like understanding what he is experiencing. And thankfully he has Elena to back him up. He feels like he does have her as a support system. So even in the moments where nobody else is really listening or believing him, he's got that to fall back on, which I think is one of the things that keeps this book from feeling like too heavy, or, you know, maybe too much of a downer for the middle grade audience. But then on the flip side, I think that it does a good job of taking these things seriously. Like, we hear from Elena and her parents what it's like to have this condition that a lot of people don't know that kids can even have. And, you know, Elena is great at managing it, and I really like how positively her sort of like resources are shown, like the pack of, you know, supplies, like emergency supplies that she always has with her, and how that is not treated as a bad thing. Like, she is really grateful to have these things, and it's shown to be a good thing, and I like that. But as I said, we also have the reality of, like, you know, her and her parents knowing that if her blood sugar gets too low or too high, that could be really dangerous for her. Like, she could be hospitalized, she could even die. And Liam has this moment of like realizing like what that must be like for her, you know, like that's terrifying to know that that is what is at stake here. And again, it's not, the book doesn't get overly scary about that, but I think that it handles it seriously, as it should, because kids do deal with things like this. And so I feel like all of that like emotional impact, that emotional honesty of what Liam and Elena are experiencing, I think that is communicated so well to the reader in a way that, you know, gives us a little tiny glimpse of what it's like to be going through the things that they are. And then finally, I also really loved the ending of this book and the way that things came together. There were some things that I think the story was leading up to that I kind of knew to expect, which is obviously not a problem. And those things did play out, but they played out in a way that I didn't expect. And I think that was done so well. Like, I really feel like the ending, I feel like the book stuck the landing, basically. Like, I feel like the story was really well done throughout, and that the ending really solidified that for me. And the ending is one of the things that brought this from, like, a book that I'm really enjoying to, like, oh, this is a 5-star. Because I really just think that it brought all of these different, like, character and theme and story elements together in a way that I thought was really well done. And also theme-wise, of course, I talked a lot about like the representation and everything, which is of course is important. And I also really loved the theme of story and fairy tales and why we have those, why we use those, and especially how that relates to putting things into words that you don't have the words for yet, like especially with Liam. And I think that was really cool the way it was done. Like, Elena and Liam are paired to work on this like personal fairy tale project together, and I think the way that that is integrated into the rest of the story was just very impressive and very well done. So obviously I really loved this. As I said, I gave Sleeping Spells and Dragon Scales 5 stars. I would definitely recommend it. Let me know if you guys are interested in it or if you've read it, what you thought. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!